Hello and welcome back to another episode of Retro Alliance Gaming. So, it's been a week and today I want to do a video about the Sega CD. Now, I was working on a review recently which is for Splatter, and I actually have some really cool stuff mixed in there. My brother-in-law who's filming right now is going to be in the review. And also my friend Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe is going to be in it, which is really exciting. But in the meantime...
Cameo!
Yes, I was watching Mike do a lot of videos recently on Sega CD, and it kind of motivated me to want to do a video. I was going to do a playthrough, but I thought I would talk about some of my favorite games that I played on the Sega CD. Now, be aware that I don't own every Sega CD game, nor have I played every Sega CD game, so I'm only basing this off of the games that I have played. So in the future, this may change. Also, certain games like, for example, Pop Full Mail, I adore that game. I would love to put that on my top 10 list, but I don't actually own that game, sadly, yet. But when I do, I'll probably put it on the list. But anyways, in the meantime, I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do an awesome 6 list for Sega CD games because the Sega CD is incredibly underrated, awesome system with a ton of gems. So let's go ahead and get started. First game I want to talk about is Batman Returns. Now, a lot of you people who are looking at this are probably thinking, oh god, a movie tie-in game, this is going to be fucking awful. Why? Because when you see movie tie-in games, a lot of times they are terrible. They take the license and they put a big name across it like this to make it seem like it's going to be good, and when you buy it, it's a broken piece of shit like Back to the Future or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, like all those games, right? But the funny thing is in the 90s, especially between 1990 and maybe around 97, there were actually some really good movie tie-in games, and even nowadays there's some that you can pick apart, and that's why I want to talk about Batman Returns. Now, if you look at the original Batman game, it came out on every system: NES, Sega Master System, Genesis, Super Nintendo, but none of them were really all those ones were pretty good, but with this game, most of them were not that great. The Super Nintendo one was pretty awesome. The NES versions and Genesis ones, all of them were just kind of blah. Like, I don't think the Genesis version of this game was necessarily bad, but it wasn't fluid when you were moving with Batman. It just felt like it could have been done so much better. Now, with Sega CD games, a lot of the times they will port a Genesis game either directly over and add stereo sound, and sometimes you add like FMVs or things like that. But with this game, what they did was, for those of you who don't know, I mean, most of you watching probably know about Sega CD, but any of you guys who don't know about this particular era of gaming, the whole point of it was is that when you had a media like this on a CD, not only were they able to make the games 10 times larger and much better. Hold on one second. Okay, that was because my annoying cat loves to mess with me every time I'm doing a video. Freaking pasta. Okay. Anyways.
We should put him in a pot.
Yes. He was in a pot when I did the Dreamcast video.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so don't worry, guys. Watch the video. I just pulled him out of a pot. That was it. It wasn't he did boiling or anything.
And we didn't get him high either.
No, we didn't. No. But except for maybe some catnip one time. But yeah. Anyway, so going forward, with the Sega CD, the big deal with it was that not only could you make games, 10, 20, 30 times your size, but you could have stereo sound, you could have FMVs, you could actually tell a story a lot better. And also the Sega CD, when it came out, it was the second ever CD add-on. The first was the TurboGrafx, which is one of the most underrated systems, but I'll get into that another time. With this, one thing that they added was they had a scaling effect, and what you can do is when you're playing a game, they were able to basically do a 360 on the camera view, so it would give you the idea that you were actually in 3D by doing a scaling effect. That not only has to do with how it turns, but when you're moving inwards or coming closer to something. So what they did was they took the Genesis version of this game, which was average, but they added an entire racing sequence to it. If you see the back right here, you have the Batmobile, and basically you could pick one or two things. You can play the main game with the racing as a whole entire game. You do races and then platformer in the races, which makes the platforming better, or you can just do the driving stages. Not only are they 3D and scaling while you're going, but you're shooting at other other cars, all the enemies. The controls are amazing. They even have a FMV cut where you see Batman up close, and basically it was a really enjoyable game, and I noticed that when I actually played this, it was fantastic. So if you guys are looking to get Batman Returns on a system other than Super Nintendo, try the Sega CD. This game is honestly really badass. Okay, so moving on to the next game I want to talk about. Again, with movie tie-ins, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was a terrible impersonation. Mitchell,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Get to the chopper!
There we go. Better than me. Okay, we got Terminator. Woo! Okay. Now, just to talk about this really quick, Terminator also came out on everything you can think of. It came out on Genesis, NES, Super Nintendo. I think it might have come out for Sega Master System. I didn't really like most of the alliterations. They weren't bad, but they were okay. They didn't really feel like there was a lot of passion thrown into them, in my opinion. But with this game, they did a lot of different stuff with it, and what I'm going to go into in just a second. If you look at, there's another Terminator game I'm trying to think of. There was a first Terminator, there was a T2 arcade game, there's a lot of them, and if you look at them all across the span, they're all kind of a little bit average, except for RoboCop versus Terminator, which was amazing on the Genesis and amazing on the Master System. On the Super Nintendo, really cool case, but not as good of a game because they took out all the blood and guts, and I mean, Genesis was a lot more willing to have that back in the day. That was like the difference between Sega and Nintendo at that time. You went there for more family fun. Sega had speedy hedgehogs and heads being decapitated with blood shooting in your face kind of shit. So anyways.
Not too different these days.
No, not really. Same thing. I mean, look at that game by Platinum. What's it called? Mad World?
Yeah.
Which Sega published and other games they make. Mad World was insane. But I think that was made by Platinum and published by Sega. But basically, you get the point. So what they did is on this game, a lot of, again, the Sega CD games that were on the CD on the Genesis were a port that they enhanced. This was not an enhanced port. They literally went into this game and they built it from the ground up for the Sega CD. So what you ended up getting was an amazing game. The first thing that you get is you have, of course, beautiful CD audio that comes with this. There's 10 huge main levels. The surround sound that you get is brilliant. The sound that you actually get on this is from different songs in the movie, plus there's some that are originally composed. And when you're moving in this game, it takes place during the part of Terminator 1 that you didn't get to see. You get to be the part of the war that you saw in flashbacks, but the entire game is made up of the war, which you never really get to see in the Terminator movies. And it was so cool. Whenever you're walking and you're moving around, you move very fluidly. If you're running up the stairs and you're going to shoot, you don't have to press up. Your gun automatically aims. There's all sorts of different Terminators. You got like Schwarzenegger and his full skin and muscles. You got the exoskeletons. Everything about this game screamed progression with the system. Screamed. Yes. And it was just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's, honestly to me, it's the most perfect Terminator game I've ever played. If you want badass music, I mean, amazing soundtrack, beautiful graphics, flows perfectly well, this is the game for you. It's amazing. Now, one thing I will say about this is the only thing I would have changed is back then they liked to put a lot of FMVs in video games, okay? Which is cool. I love FMV games. With this, they took clips directly out of the Terminator movie, so at the beginning and between each stage, you get that to be able to progress through the story, and it's fantastic. But of course, they're incredibly pixelated, and you're just kind of trying to squint to see what's going on. I think it would have been cool if they would have actually made it like an anime style, and they would have just shown more in the middle. But that would be the only thing I would change about this game. But honestly, as the game stands, it gives it charm. It shows a bygone era of FMV, and if you incorporate it into the right kind of game with enough originality, what you're actually going to get. So yeah, if you guys are looking for an edition of Terminator, you cannot get a better version than the Sega CD, and this game has not been ported anywhere. No other system. You can't get it anywhere else. This is a complete exclusive, and it is an absolutely beautiful game. Anyway, so this is, again, very high on my list. Now, going ahead and moving on, I want to get right on to my next game, which is Double Switch. Now, I'm going to be recommending this game because of my own bias. Now, let me explain. If you play Night Trap, you know what Double Switch is. Double Switch is basically a spiritual successor to Night Trap that's more difficult. You're switching room to room, and you got to set off traps and trap people. But the thing that I really love about this game is it stars the late and great Corey Haim. Just like my friend Vampire Mike, which I met recently, he adores Corey Haim. He said in one of his videos recently that he grew up where he felt like he was a buddy to him. And that's the thing. Corey Haim always felt like a friend to me, like somebody that it's like I didn't know him, but I did. I grew up watching License to Drive, Dream a Little Dream, Lost Boys, every movie you can think of.
I bet you even called the hotline.
I did call the hotline. You know that? Is it called the Corey's hotline? I swear to God I did. I adored Corey Haim, and the cool thing about this is this was the closest, as pathetic as this might sound, but to friendship I'd be able to get with this guy. I get to interactively try to save him from a basement. And it also stars Deborah Harry, which is the lead singer of Blondie, and it is just an amazing game. And one thing I really appreciate with this game, out of all the Corey Haim movies I can watch, and I mean I love all of his movies, I'll have to do a whole video about this guy someday, I could always pop this movie in and see him talking to me and play a game. So what do you get? I mix Corey Haim with the Sega CD, Sega in general, which is my two favorite things, and you put them together and you get Double Switch. So if you're a fan of corny FMV kind of stuff, or if you're just a fan of Corey Haim, jump on this immediately. Amazing game. Okay, so go ahead and put this down. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and go to a game called Sylpheed. I pronounced this wrong for the first year I had it. I think
Slipheed.
I call it like Slipheed, I think, right? Yeah,
yes.
It's actually Sylpheed. So I was like, I don't know. It's like the game, what's it called? Yeast. Yeast Book 1 and 2, Yeast 3. Everybody thought it was Wise. Because it's a Y apostrophe S, so I thought Wise, but no, it's weird. Anyways, Sylpheed. So this game also took major advantage of the Sega CD. Now, what kind of game is this? It's basically like a shmup, a shoot 'em up, except for they did this very creatively. So what they did was, if you look on the back of this really quick, I need to check it out. Okay, so what they did in this game was they basically made pre-rendered movies that were graphical movies. This isn't like a live action or something. This is the pre-rendered FMVs, and basically, as you're playing the stage, the FMV is playing out, and you have a ship, and the ship goes left to right, and you can move into the screen and backwards. So everything is going to happen the same, no matter how many times you play the game. Now, the cool thing about it is you end up learning all the patterns, and eventually, while you can watch your friend play the game and die every 5 seconds, you actually learn what you're doing, and you look like a fucking pro. I got to a point on this game where I could almost play like the entire first level with my eyes closed just by memorizing where your ship's moving. And it was really, really ingenious how they did it. They just mixed up the game with actual like FMV graphics plus 3D graphics of a ship and moving back and forth. It had beautiful sound, and it was made by Game Arts, and Game Arts made a lot of different games for the Sega CD, and all of them tried to push it. This was their first try, which was amazing, and after this they did some other really good ones that I think one's called Battle Cores, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but if you were into shoot 'em up games, this is definitely a very brilliant and exclusive game that I believe they recently ported. And they also, funny enough, had a sequel for the PS2. Never played it, but they did. I doubt that it's anything like this, but never know. So Sylpheed, fantastic game. Going ahead and moving on to the next one. Talking about FMVs, this I definitely want to talk about. This game is called The Mansion of Hidden Souls. Now, don't let this be confused with the game on the Saturn. There's another one on the Saturn that I believe is called the exact same thing, Mansion of Hidden Souls. So I always thought, okay, that must be a remake of this one with better video quality, because that's what they did with Double Switch. They would take a lot of games from the Sega CD era, bring it over to the Saturn, and then they would make the video quality way better. Well, in this case, it's a completely different game. The one that was on the Saturn was very corny, but this one is amazing. The way this is one of my favorite kind of FMV games. What it is if you've ever played a game like Lunacy for the Sega Saturn, there's a game called D, just D for the PlayStation. Basically, you can move up, down, left, or right, but the moves are all preset. So you press up, and then you move forward a certain amount in the camera, and then you move left, and you move a certain amount. So it's basically, it's hard to explain, but it's a very tense kind of game, atmospheric, and I always love these kind of games. And basically what you do is, I believe in this game, I think from what I recall, it's been a while, your sister's missing, and you end up seeing these butterflies, and you go to this mansion and you're trying to figure it out, and you're running through this game, and you've got to look for every clue you can. The whole game takes place in one house, and here's the creepy thing about this game. When you start playing this, you have, I believe, 1 hour to beat the game. It might be 2, but I think that's D. D is maybe 3 hours, and I think this one's 1 hour. So you have to know what you're doing. If you try playing this game and you don't have a guide, you're going to die. Even if you make it close to the end, if you do not finish it in the allotted time, you're gone. But the fun thing is figuring out all the secrets of this game. The music is very atmospheric. It's very dark. Everything about it, the story is really cool. The ghosts in it are very creepy. You're going to get a lot more of pixelated video. Again, this is the Sega CD, but to me, if you turn off all the lights and you play this with the music, this is an absolutely great Halloween game to play. And this goes alongside all of my favorite games, again, just like I was telling you, games like, pop this out really quick, like Lunacy right here, which I'll show you guys in the future, which is another FMV game. Beautiful game, but again, by full motion video, this isn't like somebody filming with the camera. They use actual animations, but it's different, like a cartoony FMV style or 3D. Okay, so we've gone through those games, and now I want to get to one of the final ones. Now, all these games I've showed you, I adore, and there is a lot more games that I want to be able to show you guys, and I'll probably do it in a part 2 or a part 3, but when I got the Sega CD, most people always told me, you know, this is just an FMV thing, there's nothing good, blah, blah, blah. Well, I like FMV, I love corny, but if you hate FMV and you hate corny games like that, there is still something for everyone. And the next games I want to talk about really made me fall in love with this system. Now, the games that I am talking about here are Lunar, Silver Star, and Lunar Eternal Blue. Now, when I was growing up, I really loved RPGs like around the 32-bit era. I started out with like Final Fantasy VIII, many other games, but I didn't really go back and play a lot of 16-bit games. I did when I was a kid, 16-bit RPGs, but I never really got far in them. And then when I got a little bit older, I went back and realized that I missed out on a treasure trove of amazing games. And Lunar, Silver Star, and Eternal Blue were localized by a company named Working Designs, and they basically are absolutely wonderful. They take whatever they had in Japan and they make it better. If there was bugs, they fix it. They were able to translate everything perfectly, and it's really hard for me to explain these games, but if you don't own them, you can either have them for the Sega CD, which they are really expensive. This one's probably around 150, and this one can go upwards of 250 or more. They are rare and collectible, but they did remake both of these games for the PS1, and I've yet to play both of them, but they are beautiful and brilliant. I have Silver Star for the Sega CD and for the PS1. I played this one first. The one on the PlayStation, I'm going to say, is the better of the two because they added so many cutscenes to it that it filled out the story more. I adored this game a ton, but on the PlayStation, they really flushed out the story a lot more, and it's because they were a little bit more limited on time when they first made this. The exact opposite is with Lunar Eternal Blue. With Lunar Eternal Blue, this game had over an hour and a half of cutscenes. Like, they really put everything they could into this one, and I don't even need to play the remake because there are so many cutscenes and voice acting and everything. It's amazing. And these games, you just start off and they take place one after another, so many years in the future from each other. But you have this great cast of characters: Alex, Luna, Ramus, and Null, and it is my favorite 16-bit RPG I've ever played in my life. The story is beautiful. The characters are amazing and memorable. The fighting system is brilliant. I mean, these games got me emotional. The music is the most beautifully written music I've ever seen in an RPG. And I literally became attached to these characters. These games are the kind of games that make you laugh, they make you cry, they make you want to do everything you can do in them and then repeat it again afterwards. In my personal opinion, out of every 16-bit RPG I've ever played in my life, these are up there in my top 5. I mean, you could talk about games like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Phantasy Star. They're all wonderful games, and these ones definitely earn their place. If you guys are ever interested in playing this, which you've seen this playing up in the corner, well, if you have a Sega CD, you can get this one again a fair price. This one a bit more expensive. If not, look at it for the PlayStation. You can get both of them. For the regular editions, a lot cheaper. But again, most beautiful games I've ever played. Anything that says the words working designs on it, you need to get. They also, again, made Popful Mail, and they made a game called Bay. But I'll go into that later. Anyways, guys, so yeah, sorry this video was so long. I was only going to do a few of them because I talk a lot. So if you actually stuck with me to the end, I appreciate it. Or if you just clicked and watched for a few minutes and commented, thank you too. Although if you did, you probably aren't listening to this part right now, are you? But anyways, guys, thank you so very much. Let me know what your favorite games are. What are some of your favorite Sega CD games? Maybe corny FMV games, or what would you say? There's a lot of other ones that I have not mentioned, like Willy Beamish and other games I love, and I'm going to do in a part 2. But let me know below anything on there, or maybe a 3DO game or something you like. And in the meantime, thank you guys so much for supporting us. Please stay tuned for our upcoming review of Splatterhouse, and I'll see you next time.